Welcome to the How to Podcast series. My name is Dave. Happy to have you here. Let's get into the conversation today around podcasting. Let's help you start your show and grow your podcast. Everybody, welcome back to the How to Podcast series, where I bring on amazing podcasters who inspire me, and they're doing great things, and you're going to learn a lot. Tim's here on the show. We connected through, I believe, Podmatch, which is amazing. Yeah. So Alex, thank you to the team for all that you do. And Tim, I'm so glad to have you on the show. Tim's got 2 podcasts, and we'll talk about that. But Tim also has a lot of great tools and a lot of great things that can help you as a podcaster, as a speaker. Tim's got great stories, and both of us promise to not throw up at any point in this recording. Tim, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
Dave, thanks so much for inviting me on it. And you know, it's funny that you bring up the throw up. I've got more than one throw up story, just so everybody knows.
Okay. All right. Well, we got to share at least one of them. Come on. Okay. I remember I watched you. You talked about getting up in front of an audience, and it just kind of happened. So can you explain what happened? Kind of give us a little backstory. Come on.
So I just gotten out of the military. I'd spent 3 years in the Army as an airborne infantry soldier. And, you know, I go off to college. I'm 21 years old, and I know everything at this point, right? Nobody's going to tell me anything at all. I've got it all. And as a freshman, you know, you get scheduled for this human communications, public speaking course. I said, nah, I don't need that. I already know how to do it. And then when my advisor says, if you don't take it, you're not going to graduate. When I registered for it, the very first time I came to speak, you know, I was a wreck, and I couldn't figure out why. I had no idea why, because again, I've been in the military. I've been in charge of a squad. I've been an athlete, you know, talking to people and leading people, you know, almost, I say my entire life. I'm you know, 22, 23 years old at this point. And I don't know where it came from, but the whole idea of standing up in front of a group of people and talking to them just overwhelmed me. And this is before PowerPoint, this is before laptops. This is a long time ago, but I had an overhead projector with a transparency. So, you know, most, I don't even know if half the audience is going to know what that is, but you know, and as soon as I started talking, I threw up. I literally threw up in class. And the worst part about it is I wanted to be a teacher. You know, so how are you going to be a teacher if you can't stand up in front of a group of students, 30, 35 students, and give a 5-minute speech? It's just not going to work.
Right.
And so, you know, that's kind of what really started my journey into this area, which it's, you know, I tell people I'm still a work in progress, still trying to figure it out. You know, but I think everybody is still trying to figure out the communication piece and how to get better at it. And it's something that we all have to work on every day.
Interesting, because as podcasters, people come to podcasting for many reasons. We have coaches, doctors, lawyers, people who do a lot of great things in the company and the business that they do. But when they come to podcasting, a lot of people that I talk to starting a show have never been on a microphone before. They have no idea how to do what we're doing right now.
Right.
They don't know how to be a guest. They stumble over their words. They're caught up in all their crutch words, everything. Everything seems hard. And in that moment, it's almost to the point where they're like, when you in the class standing in front of the 30 to 35 students, be like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I can't do it now. I'm not going to do it in the future. This is not for me. And they walk out of the room. I want to keep people in podcasting as long as it works for them and it serves them, and for them to find the confidence to find their voice.
Right.
For you as a speaker, how long did it take you to actually hone in and find your unique voice?
Oh man, you know, Dave, that's a great question. It took a while. You know, for me, I actually started teaching, 1995. And I would say, you know, my first 2 years, and I was teaching in public high school at the time. I would say my first 2 years in public high school was horrible. And it goes back to, you know, I'm somebody who's a continuous learner. I'm always trying to get better, you know, whatever it is. And I was back then too. And I would go to people like my principal, and I would say, will you please come in and observe me? Tell me how I can get better. Tell me, you know, give me something. And she came in the first time after I had been teaching for like a month. She said, you're doing great. And I said, okay, first off, that's a lie. Second off, I know I know you're not somebody who I'm going to be able to rely on. And I think it's very important. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter what industry you get into, whatever it is that you do. You've got to find a good inner circle, who's somebody who can mentor you, who can coach you, who's going who's going to really kind of shoot you straight with what's going on, where you're doing well, where you need help on. And I think that's one of the things that I did early on was I got a core group of people that I found that taught me at least some basics to get me through until I could really start to find that voice. Because again, teaching's no different than anything else. You got to find your own way. You have to find how you're going to communicate what who you are as an individual, and it does take some time to do that. And that's kind of how I would mentor teachers, how I mentor professors in that perspective. Give them the knowledge of their core competency knowledge, and then help them, with some basic public speaking communication tips, and then figure out how they're going to, who they are as a speaker, as a presenter, and then work on bringing those positive traits out so that they can get better at that.
Like for you, Tim, you know how to do tough things. You've gone through training, right? And the training helps you to understand how to jump out of a plane. I had somebody on my show, my author podcast. He's a paratrooper, and he talked about jumping out at night.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You can't even see where you're going. You have no point of reference. And he's like, well, it's safer that way. You don't get shot. And I'm like, well, wow. Okay, that's interesting. You get your kind of a very nice target kind of floating down to the earth there to pick off, right? So
exactly. Right. Yeah, and it's I'm scared to death of heights. But I would rather Dave, at the time, I would rather jump out of planes and get up in front of people and speak.
Really?
Yeah. So I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and high rise hotel, the glass elevator, and I don't look out the elevator. I turn around and look at the door. Because I can't do it. But the thought 20 years ago about getting up in front of a group of people terrified me.
Wow,
terrified.
It's amazing.
But
but
got to do it scared.
Yeah, do it scared.
The only way you're going to get better at anything that you have some sort of anxiety of, whether it's going to the gym, standing up in front of people, whatever it is, the very first step is you have to be willing to do it scared.
So you have a unique perspective from on stage to being a podcaster. What do you think is the same? What carries over, which is similar between the two, and what's completely different between speaking on stage and doing your podcast?
The preparation. And I wrap a ton of things up into preparation, and I'd like to get your perspective on this as well in a second here. But to me, it's preparation. It's preparation on the audience first and foremost. It's preparation on the content. It's preparation on the setting. So for me, presenting in a situation like this is very different than if we were doing this live, or if I was on stage doing a question and answer. Right? How I look, how I move, how I speak, the hand gestures. And I tell people a lot when I coach them, for me, and again, we all have to have our own things. For me, I'm much more comfortable now in person than I am on camera. And who would have thought that, 20 some years ago, right?
Right.
A little over a year ago, I couldn't take a selfie because I didn't know where to look.
Right.
Right. And now with technology, we do so much online. If let's just say, for example, my setup is a little bit different than a lot of people's. If I look at the camera that's down here, as opposed to looking at the camera here, all of a sudden we've disengaged and you lose the audience. So so when I say preparation, I am a preparer, so that I know what's going to happen. And that way, if something happens out of the ordinary, it's a real easy, most time it's a real easy switch to, okay, I can handle that and just move on without a whole lot of disruption.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing that I learned early on as a podcaster was how to listen better.
Okay.
Because my mind would be spinning with technology. What's the next question? Am I doing this right? Am I still recording? Did I hit record? Like all these things are going on in my brain. While my guest is talking, I'm not listening to them in that moment because I'm so caught up in the Dave side of the conversation, not so much my guest side. So Tim's doing this great thing. He shares something great, and it's a perfect, pitch right across the plate. I don't even acknowledge it. I move on to the next thing. And my audience is like, that was a great setup for a continued conversation, and Dave completely missed it. He
You know,
completely ignored his guest in the
yeah,
moment,
no,
right?
no follow up,
Nothing.
no, oh,
No.
explain no, but yeah,
Yeah. So I hear people say like, well, that was the day, actually, that was the day when I almost died. My car went off the cliff. And the host is like, question number two, what's your favorite color, Tim? And you're like, wait a minute,
right,
the car, the cliff, can we
because
go back to that? Because you just
exactly.
ignored all of that. So that kind of frustrates me from a listener's perspective, and I didn't want
Mhm.
that to follow me into my show. So for me, listening was the key thing that I really honed in on earlier, to stop thinking so much while my guest is talking and listen to them, acknowledge them. Don't be busy doing busy things. My guest is going to pick up that I'm not interested in what you're saying because Dave's playing around with my keyboard and I'm looking for my pen, and I'm not even looking at you while we're
Right,
recording. Right.
right,
And I notice my guests, they'll just slowly stop talking and they'll just give shorter answers because there's no dialogue happening
right,
in our body
right.
language. And I know you talk about that on your
Yes.
podcast. I know you talk about that on your website,
Mhm.
but our connection as humans, even though we're
Yes.
virtual, how do we create that bond? What do you suggest for a podcaster to have a great interview with a guest? Do you have any tips?
Well, I think number one, you nailed it. Is you have to listen, and that's good for any type of communication. And listening to whoever it is that you're communicating with, you know the and I think you really kind of laid it out there. But then to take that a step further, depending on that situation, how we listen. And like you said, that eye contact this way. And when we're in person, it could be a lean in, it could be a shrug, it could be oh my goodness, it could be whatever it is to really show that you're invested in that individual or that group of people and let them know that they are the most important thing that's going on in your world right now
Right.
is listening to what they're saying.
Right. You go to a conference and you meet your idol. I meet you, Tim. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got Tim. And I'm standing in front of you. I'm like, Tim, I love your show. Speaking with Confidence. Such a great podcast, blah, 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 blah. And Tim is doing what? Looking past me
That's me.
at the person behind me that Tim wants to talk to, ignoring the person in front of him in the
Right.
moment because I'd much rather talk to that guy or that
Right.
woman over there. But meanwhile, you have somebody who just loves your show and you're not connecting with them at all. Even
Right.
in real life, it can happen,
Right.
right?
It does happen, and I kind of felt that or saw that at this conference that I was at a couple of weeks ago. You know, not necessarily. I don't say I don't want this to come off the wrong way.
Yeah.
Not saying that people weren't overlooking me, but I saw people talking to people and overlooking because it's one thing I do is I watch people. I watch body
Right.
language. I watch other things that are going on. It's because I'm truly an introvert, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing about introverts is we truly look at what's going on and we evaluate things on a different level and then we decide when we want to engage and how we're going to engage it and with those types of people and if we see somebody who is like that who's not necessarily engaged in that conversation who's looking for somebody else, one of the things that we do is we will disengage with that person and not choose them. We'll go somewhere else because
Yeah.
when we do engage, we need to be that focus because
Mhm.
that's what we need as introverts.
Yeah. So I asked earlier about the similarities between speaking
Mhm.
on stage
Yeah.
and a podcast, but
Yeah.
also the differences for a speaker that's listening to us that wants to have a podcast. Can I just be speaker Dave on a
No.
podcast, or is
No.
a podcast different? How is it different than speaking from stage?
So to me, it's different in a couple of ways, and it's not just the delivery method because when you're on stage, you're getting feedback, you're getting real time feedback, right? You're seeing if somebody's nodding off, you're seeing if they're checking their phone, you're hearing them clap, you're hearing the payoffs, right? And I call them payoffs. I mean, other people may call them like if you tell a joke, they may laugh, or if you say something that's shocking, they may sigh, or they may whatever that is.
Yeah.
But when you're a podcaster, if you're a podcaster doing a solo show, it's you talking directly to the camera.
Right.
There's no, that's all there is, and you have to make sure that you're delivering that message with the ebbs and flows that you would normally have, and you don't know if they're going to pay off at all. We briefly talked about this a little bit before we came on.
Yeah.
How do we know if our show's doing well? I mean, we may get some interaction with our listeners via email. You know, they may write reviews and this, that, and the other thing. But how do we know, like halfway through episode 17, did that message really hit?
Yeah.
Did that message really land?
Yeah.
And so being a podcaster, it's difficult. Now, when you have an interview show like this, you know, I can see you and I can watch your facial expressions and we can see those types of things, but that doesn't necessarily translate into how the audience is going to receive that message, which
Right.
is it's difficult. And it's the word I'm looking for. I'm not saying that we put it out in hope and pray, because again, if we've prepared, we know that what we're providing, the information that we're providing, is of value. We just don't know if it's truly landing the way we want it to land.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess the big thing that I always like is when I meet somebody in real life that I listen to, I've seen on video, and I come and I meet you, Tim, at a conference, and you're the same person that I hear in my ears, or I
Yes.
watch on my screen.
Mm-hmm.
You're the same person in real life. You're not
Yes.
like a, hey, everybody, and kind of this thing, and you're like this bigger than life person.
Right.
And when I meet you, you're quiet, you're reserved, you don't speak to anybody, and you hide in the corner. As
Mm-hmm.
an introvert, that's where I live, in the
Mm-hmm.
corners of the room. But I know that when I go to an event as an introvert, I have to turn up the Dave dial just a
Yes.
little bit
Just
to
a
be a
little bit.
little bit nicer, a little bit more open to people,
Mm-hmm.
because my natural habitat is not that at all. I'm
Right.
happy to leave 5 seconds after I got there. But
Yep.
being in podcasting, it's helped me to kind of turn that up and play with that dial of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to go too far where I'm a fake
Fake.
representation of who I
Right.
really am, right? So
Right.
that
Because people notice.
reality,
People will
right?
notice that.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, it's people notice, and again, I referencing the conference I was at last week or week ago, whenever it was. So it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it was 5 days.
Wow.
So think about that. 5 days for an introvert being out there. I
Oh
was
my God.
done.
Done.
I was done. I mean, I was literally done. So you get there and you start interacting with people at 8 in the morning. It goes to 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and I'm exhausted. I mean, I'm just exhausted because, again, we're not being fake, but we do have to turn it up a little bit. We do have to pay attention more. We do have to be just a little bit different. And it's very telling. And you said this, when you go to places, conferences or networking events or these different things, connecting with the people that are being authentic, just like they are on the show.
Right.
And you mentioned Podmatch and Alex. Alex is, I don't know if you ever met Alex.
I've had him on my show. He's the super, love this guy.
Dave, I'm not saying this to butter him, but I mean, that's who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen him. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're friends. We've interacted, we've talked and those types of things. And that is so important. And some of the other, I don't know if you know Dave, oh my gosh, Red Hat Media.
Oh, Larry Roberts.
Larry Roberts. I can't. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's him.
That's Larry.
That's him.
Yeah.
And it's those people like that truly make, to me, this industry what it is. And when you find people like that, that's what it's all about. Those are real, genuine, salt of the earth people who care about their audience, care about providing value, and really just want people to be better and giving them the tools that they need to be better. So
yeah. One of the things I saw on your website in one of your podcast episodes, you talked about improv. And I'm like, oh, I love this, because I haven't had an opportunity to talk to anybody about this on the show. I think that podcasting has roots in improv. I love improv comedy. Whose Line Is It Anyway? Is a TV show where they do all that stuff. You're thinking on your feet, you're reacting in real time. There's actually the opposite of our conversation. There's no prep for this because you're reacting to whatever the situation is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a guest, I can prep, I can listen to your show, I can get an idea of what you might ask me, but I really don't know. I don't know what's coming next as a guest, just like we're doing right now. So in that, I'm reacting in real time to the question in front of me. And it's kind of like improv a little bit.
Yes.
But can you expand a little bit more on that specific episode? We'll link it in the show notes, but a
Yeah.
little bit more around your idea behind that episode and why you did that episode for your show.
Yeah. So one of the reasons behind that was to take some of the pressure off of people who want to be perfect all the time.
Mhm.
Who think that, if they don't say the right word, if they don't say it the right way, the whole thing is a mess, and they're going to look stupid, and people are going to judge them. And the whole idea of that was to let some of that go, and just relax and be in the moment, and have some tools to say, okay, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, or I don't know exactly how I'm going to react, but fall back on some things that are just easy to to implement, and to be able to still share good quality information without having to be Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect or right on point or all buttoned up, which again I think is a big problem. That people want to see who you actually are, and it's the authentic piece of you that comes out. And that was kind of the big thing there. And so when you look at the whole idea of yes and, that's something that is so simple, and can not only be used like in this type of scenario, but in real life as an introvert. I use that a lot, right? um, you know if if you're talking to somebody, and you don't really have a good direction, or the direction isn't going where you want to go, doing that not only gives you some more time to think and react, but it also provides a deeper connection to whoever it is that you're actually talking to.
Yeah. One of the things I've been working on and developing over a period of time is callbacks within the episode. So
Okay, yeah,
we mentioned something at the beginning, and then it just kind of naturally finds itself near the end of the conversation.
right,
We
right,
bring it up again, we tie it all back together, and it's like this loop that's been closed in the
right.
conversation. You're like, wow, like my guest will say something, for some reason it sticks in my head. We continue going, and it just sort of naturally comes back. And I'm like, so one example I had is I had an author on. He wrote 3 books all separately. He said there was no common thread across all 3 books.
Mm,
Well, I'm like, well, the only common thread is you as the author.
right.
That's a common thread.
That's come thread,
But
right?
I said, but as I listened to you talk about these 3 books, I said, it seems like there is a common thread. And he's like, I don't have one. I'm like, well, it seems like all 3 of your books are your battle with self-identity. And this
Hmm,
guy's a professor, right? And he's
hmm.
looked at me and he went, I have never thought of that ever.
How about that?
I've never ever considered that it's self-identity. He's right. He says, and he starts reviewing it. Yeah, book 1 is this, book 2 is this, book 3 is this.
Mhm.
He's like, yeah, it's self-identity. It's my battle with self-identity. And he just, when we were done, he's like, did somebody feed you that question? Like, did my people send you that? Like, how did you know to ask me that? I said, I'm just listening to you. And
Right,
as you're explaining it, my mind was going, this really adds up. Like, so I'm
right,
listening and engaged and processing it in real time. But that kind of response from a guest when they're like, how did you know to ask me that? Or I've never been asked that before. Or, you went somewhere I've never gone before. I love that kind of genuine connection with somebody,
right,
honoring them as my guest on my show, and doing, like you said, preparing, doing my homework, and showing up to give them the best discussion possible. I want
right.
I want my guests to
Yeah,
shine.
right.
Um,
That to me, and that's generally what I say. You know, so we did a pre-call
yeah,
just so everybody knows.
yeah,
I don't as a host, I never interview somebody without a pre-call. I just don't do it. Um, I've been a guest without it, and we get through it. But as a host, I don't do it. And one of there's a couple reasons why I do it. Number one is, first and foremost, to make sure that there's a rapport,
yeah,
right? That we can have a back and forth, that there's some chemistry there. And number two is so that we can actually kind of discuss some of the issues or topics that we're going to talk about,
yeah,
and then we go and do the research. And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong here, and let's use that example that you just had with the professor.
yeah.
You did your research, you listened, and something triggered your brain, and then you asked that question, and then you let him think it through.
Yeah. Yeah. There was
Right.
a big gap there, by the
There was
way.
a
There was
big
a big
gap,
gap.
right?
He was like, wait. Yeah.
That's an art. That is an art. That is something that you've been a podcast host for a long time. You
Yeah.
do a ton of shows, and I don't know how you do it. And hopefully, we get a chance to talk about it. I don't know how you do it, but being a good host and being a good interview it's an art and a craft. But I think what you did is an art, because to be in that moment, to be able to get that out of somebody who they never thought about it before, and have it happen on your show like that, that's masterful.
Yeah. And the response was just, again, people, I usually do audio mostly for my shows for the
Mhm.
most part, but in an audio format, you could hear the silence and you could hear him stumble a little bit going, what? Like, it was just this really weird moment. And I almost was like, should I have asked that question?
Of
But yeah,
course.
in my mind, I'm like, well, I know my audience would be asking the question. And I wanted, the reason I asked him if there was a common thread is I just wanted the readers listening to the show to know that
Mhm.
there's more than one book that might be of interest for them.
Right.
So he could sell 3 books instead of one. That was kind of my goal. I want him to sell more books. That's my intention with the question.
Right.
So
So
I,
you just
yeah.
you just brought something else up that I think is so important. How do you deal with silence? Because
Hmm.
as individuals, we can't stand silence. Silence is worse than screaming, right? How do you handle silence?
I had one author on my show and she wrote a book about her brain injury, and she had a traumatic brain injury. And I listened to her on other shows, and I know she had mentioned it, and in her book she talked about it. But for her, when she is asked a question, she has to process it. She doesn't respond immediately. It takes a second, and then she'll answer. And when I would ask her a question, knowing that, I anticipated the pause, where normally I would kind of like tighten it up and make it sound better and clean it up a
Right.
little bit in the edit.
Mhm.
But about 3/4 of the way through, she apologized to the listener for the sake that she had to pause because she has to process the question in real time, and that's why there's a gap. So if I went through my edit process and chopped out all the silences and got to that point where she apologized for all of the edits and all the silence I removed from my episode, it wouldn't have been her genuine voice.
Right.
And if you struggle with a traumatic brain injury, to hear me clean it up for that guest is almost
It's
negating your
mhm.
processing of how you
Mhm.
do it. I wanted people to hear that episode like her who have a traumatic brain injury and go, well, if she can get on a podcast and get in front of people and tell her
Right.
story with all the gaps, I can do it. Right.
Right. It's
So
okay. Right.
it's okay. So I wanted that to be a real moment. Everything in me wanted to clean it up, Tim, because I do my own editing. I wanted to make it nice and clean and tight. That's how I would normally do the show. But that was a special example of leave the silence in because it was true to my guest. I didn't want to make them untrue. If you met them in real time, in real person, like real event, they would have the gaps. So why take that away and make them unreal in that moment, right? So
Yeah.
in that moment, I left the gaps in.
That's to me that's really powerful to again to understand, like you said, to honor that guest, and then to also make it okay that silence sometimes is a good thing, right?
Yeah,
It allows, not only does it allow people to think, but it also allows the audience to catch up and say,
yeah,
and let them think and let them process and let them have that, wow, I wonder what's coming next.
right.
Go back to improv for a second, right? Because we right,
Hmm.
and they do this in improv. That somebody showed me a back of somebody showed me a video uh last week. I was up, I work with a coach. Okay, just so everybody, I work with a coach,
Hmm.
and he was showing me a video of Jim Carrey, and it was Jim Carrey at I think at the Golden Globes or something. He had won an award or something, or he was presenting an award or something, and he was speaking, and he would say stuff, and he would pause, and he'd give you that Jim Carrey look and shake his head, and he'd pause. And what my coach was pointing out to me was the power of that pause,
Hmm.
and it's appropriate not only in serious discussions, but how important it is in comedy.
Hmm.
Because you know, my style is I like to have fun. I like to joke. I'm not a comedian. I don't try and be a comedian, but you know, the stories I tell a lot are about me and funny things that have happened in my life or embarrassing things, and it's okay to laugh. And he was really trying to point out to me the power of that pause, even in comedy and improv.
Yeah, those are those beats. That's the timing, right?
Right.
And anyone that's up on stage can really help to hold your attention if they have that sense of timing.
Right.
Again, we talk about the beats. I'm a musician, and I always believe that the beauty of music is the gaps between the notes. That's
Okay.
where you find the beauty of music, right? So when a band's up there playing and they're all in, and then all of a sudden the band stops, and the crowd, what's the crowd do? They start screaming, right? Because
Right.
the song
Right.
just abruptly ended for no reason. And then they start building the song back in instrument by instrument. Everyone kind of joins back in and brings the room right back up again.
Right.
Listen to any song list, any set list at any band, any concert. You'll see the highs and the lows, and there's that flow.
Mhm.
It's not
Right.
one speed the whole time. It's not really, really slow. It's not really, really fast. You got
Right.
fast song, a slow song, medium song. It builds. There's an
Right.
ebb and flow that happens for music. Speakers don't get on stage and just blow through one way all the way through. Don't get up there and just wing it because you have an opportunity to wing it and have
Right.
memorized this speech.
Right.
Come on, like it's an audience, right? They're
It's an
they're there
audience.
for you.
And you know, go back that here for just a second now. One of the things that he's trying to drill into my head is, let's just say you've got a 30-minute speech. What he wants me to understand is, for a 30-minute speech, I need to have 30 payoffs, averaging a payoff a minute. Now, a payoff
Mm,
could be a laugh, it could be a lull, it could be a sigh, it could be anything that's actually changing somebody's emotions, where they get an emotional reaction out of it. And that's really how you keep an audience engaged. Now bring that into podcasting. Okay, it's the same, but it's not the same, because again, we want to make sure that our guests or our audience is listening. Let's just say our episode is 30 minutes long. We want to make sure that they're listening from opening
yeah,
to closing to get the full value of everything that we're talking about. And in that, we've got to make sure that there's those emotional payoffs along with the value payoffs that we're trying to give them. And so how we incorporate those, it's really, really important. And to me, it's a lot harder to do that from a podcast perspective, again, because of what I mentioned before. We're not seeing it, we're not hearing it right away. And so it's a little bit more difficult, but that payoff.
yeah. Especially if you're a solo podcaster and you're
Oh
doing
man.
audio only, that connection with the audience is a big lift,
Yeah.
especially when you're just learning how to do this. Because
Yes.
how do you show up on the mic without sounding overly scripted, where you're just doing a reading basically,
Mm-hmm.
like an audiobook? How do you get to the emotional side? How do you show who you really are when you don't have a visual? That's another challenge for
Yes.
podcasters as well.
So and it's funny you say that, again, because I told you I've been on the road, and I don't do any recordings when I'm away. And so yesterday, last night, and today, I've done some batch recordings. And you know, behind me, behind the screen, it's another part of the office. And last night, my wife was in the office as I was recording, and I asked her how it was, because all she could do was hear it. She said, "No, no,
No,
just no."
really?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, I think it's awesome. I think it's great. I would much rather her be honest with me,
Yeah,
and okay, and let's go back and redo it. Let's figure out a better way for it to come across, because again, she's not seeing my face, she's not seeing the body language.
yeah,
All she heard was the audio piece of it. And um, again, I've got a coach, and this is a little bit different. I did a 3-minute story. I was just practicing telling stories, and this was the first run at this story. And she said, "Well, no, you got to do better at that." I said, "I'm not worried about all of it. All I'm worried about is the content of it. Is the content what we want to say? And then we can go back and we can work on, you know, the voice inflection,
yeah.
those other things. But content really has to come first." And she said, "Okay." And then I did one of the episodes. But so like my solo episodes like that, like improv or the one I was doing last night and today, I will read through it because I do script that out
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that we're good. I read through that probably 75, 80 times
Wow.
before I ever turn the mic and recording on,
Yeah.
because it has to flow well. It has to be, words have meaning. They have, and they've got to work well together. And then I'll probably record, 3 or 4, and then mix them down. Unless my wife says no, then I got to start all over again.
You have a built-in coach right there with you too. I like that.
Yeah, but it's good. I mean, it's yeah. I think it's critical. Going back to the idea of lifelong learning, having a coach, having a mentor, having somebody who's going to be honest with you is so important in our growth. I don't want people around me that are just yes people, because
Right.
we don't get better. We don't get better that way.
Yeah. I get that. I get people reaching out to me saying, can you listen to my podcast and give me feedback? And I'm like, do you want feedback or do you want praise?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? Because there's
What
a
do you
difference.
want?
I can just focus on all the good things you're doing and make you feel happy and good.
Right.
But if you want to grow, I'm going to give you feedback. There's a difference between feedback and praise for me. Right. So that's kind of my first response to them. And then I know whether they're open to tweaking and improving, or if they just want to be patted on the back in the moment, which is fine.
Yeah.
I need to know what you want. Right.
But I don't have to listen to the podcast to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing really good. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
right.
Let's not waste anybody's time. I mean, but I'm like you. It's okay. It's funny. The story I was actually telling is the difference between styles. My wife is a nurturer. I'm not. I'm a get over it, fix it, and drive one person. And I'm not going to come rub your back and tell you it's going to be great. I'm just going to say, okay, you're doing well here. We got to fix this over here. This is the way we're going to fix it. Let's get after fixing it.
Yeah. I like it. One of the other things I caught on your website was your confident connection formula, your elevator pitch.
Yes.
And I think as podcasters, we love our words. We love our 45-minute episodes. Talk. But that elevator pitch, the relevance of having an elevator pitch for your speaking or for your podcast, why is that on your website? Why is that so important, Tim, to have that elevator pitch for what you do?
Well, for a number of reasons. Let's just start initially with podcasts, because new listeners are going to listen to the first minute. If you don't engage them in 30 to 45 seconds, they're clicking off. And I was reading an article earlier today, and I can't remember specifically what it was about, the full thing of it, but that's what they said. New listeners are about 45 seconds. And if they're not, they're gone.
Yeah. Just
like that. And they'll never come back. So that's really all you have. So what's your hook? What's the value proposition that they're going to get out of listening to your podcast? That to me is why it's so important. So number one, they're going to know what the podcast is about and what they're going to get out of it. Period.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in person at giving a presentation or a networking event, what have you, networking is not going in and exchanging business cards. Networking is not going and collecting a bunch of names. Networking is going and finding who you can provide value to that is willing to build a connection with you and provide value back to you. It has to be a two-way street. You have to be able to provide value to other people. And I would say most people, when they go to networking events, they're thinking about themselves. And if you can figure out how you can provide value to other people really quickly, that's going to change the tide. And then you're going to say, wow, this person's on top of it. This person can really help us here. How can I help this person back? What do we need to do to bring this person into our circle so that we can work together and do business together, do a project together, whatever it is. But the very first thing that you have to do as an individual, you have to show that you're going to be able to provide value. So who you are, what you do, and what value you can provide in 30 to 45 seconds.
Hmm.
That's so important. And one of the things I teach is, number one, how to come up with that. Because a lot of people think it's, you just have to be, I'm Tim, I went to this college, I've been a college professor for this long, this is what I do.
Yeah.
That's nothing. They've already tuned you out.
Yeah.
What's your hook? How are you going to get them? And so I teach people how to get that hook, but then I teach them how to take that and be able to change it for different scenarios. How you're going to introduce yourself. What's that value proposition over here as opposed to over here?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, for me, it's reframing the idea of who benefits from this conversation. So
Right.
if I come on your show, Tim, if I come in with the attitude that your audience is lucky to have me as a guest on this show, that's not going to work. You show up as a host going, you're lucky you found my podcast. That's not going to work. We want the audience to go, I'm lucky I'm here because I got to hear this from Tim on his show. We want the audience to be the ones that benefit the most. And when I meet with guests that are first time guests to coming on my podcast, I tell them, I love that you're going to come on my show. I want you to know the most important person is not here in the moment right now as you and I talk. They're going to show up later. So as long as you and I agree that they're the most important person in this conversation, then we can move forward with this recording. That's who we're here to serve. And if at any point we start shining the light on ourselves or navel gazing, right, and ignore the person that's going to listen later, then this is not going to give you the results that you're looking for coming on my show. The best results are going to come when we connect with that person who's pressed play and they're still here right now. That's the person we want to connect with.
And what they also have to understand is that person may not show up for another 10 years.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So as podcasters, I don't know about you, but I a lot of times I gauge the success of an episode in the first week. What we do the first week, and then 30 days, 60 days, 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
But if a show doesn't land in 30 days, that concerns me. Right. But we all Oh man, I'm sorry. That was
That's
me.
okay. That's all right.
Oh, I freak out when that happens.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I think we were just at that point where we're talking about the 30, 60, 90 days and
Yeah.
seeing the results. That's kind of where it stopped at that point, but I'll chop it up. I'll make sure it all looks and sounds great.
Yeah, and basically, I was just wrapping up saying that it's not it's a long game. You have to
Right.
play the long game. It's not short results and get out of there. You have to think about this from a much bigger perspective.
Yeah, I had an author on my show for the Living the Next Chapter. She was on 2 years ago. She got an email from she lives in the US. She got an email from a book fair festival in Germany. They're like, we'd love for you to come and speak at this festival. And then she's like, how'd you find me? Oh, Living the Next Chapter 2 years ago, you were on that show. And we heard the episode now, and we want you to come out to Germany. So she
So
emails me.
that
She's like, 2 years ago, I was on your show. And now I have this new opportunity because I came on your podcast and someone in Germany heard it. She's like, this is insane. This is crazy. She's like, I've never been to Germany. Okay. I
hop on
guess
the
I'm
plane.
going to
Let's go.
Germany, right? Like
Exactly.
all because of a podcast. So your thought about the delayed results that could come later. If you're showing up as a guest and you want instant results, it might not be for the entire audience. It might not be instantaneous. So
Right.
just have that perspective as well. I love it.
And the other thing I told my wife this, last week when I got back from traveling, she asked me what my strengths were from being a podcaster, and I said, well, I know what one of them is not. I have to get better at being a guest,
Hmm.
and I have to get better at making sure that the value that I'm providing is the value that that audience and that host really wants me to provide, and make sure that I'm articulating that. So,
Yeah.
how I say it to you may be different than how I say it to another show and their guests, and making sure that value is always there. And
Yeah.
as guests, like you said, it's not about us. It's not about the host. It's about, again, making sure that we're providing that value to the audience.
Right.
It's so important.
Yeah. Anything unique that you do as a guest in preparation that you don't do specifically for your own show as a host?
I try and do what I ask other guests to do.
Okay.
In terms of, if I'm telling a story about a certain thing, make sure that I don't necessarily tell the same story.
Okay.
To get the point across.
Yeah.
So, we came on, I've got a couple throw up stories.
Yeah.
When it comes to present.
Interesting thing to collect, by the way. A bunch of stories. Yeah.
But I mean, I wish I didn't,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
As a, for example, I was at a conference presenting, and it was a group presentation. There were 4 of us in the group. It was an hour and a half long presentation, and I had the flu. I was sick. I was so what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to not show up. Right. I mean, I'm a professional. It's my responsibility to be there. It's my responsibility to not let the team down, to make sure that I'm presenting what I'm supposed to present. And I'm white as a ghost. I'm just, I'm ill. And my part was kind of probably first half, but I didn't leave. I stayed there. And as soon as everything was over, I felt it coming, and I rushed out and opened the door, and it was to a back hallway, and I threw up right there. And the point is, it doesn't matter what's going on. Your responsibility as a presenter is to your audience. You've got to do what you need to do and get through it. When I was teaching in Thailand, don't drink the water. What Tim do? Tim drank the water.
Oh, no.
And I taught for 3 days, just ill, just sick. But again, it comes back to, as a professional, you're there for the audience. Give the audience what they deserve.
Right.
So that's the point. So that's one thing that I try and do as a guest, is to make sure, like I ask other guests, if you're going to tell a story about a certain point, make sure that you have a story that you haven't told somewhere else. Because again, that brings that value back to your show.
You see people who guest frequently, and they do the same story, the same spiel, the same A, B, C, D, the same call to action. And it's like the exact carbon copy of the last 15 episodes they were on other shows. Right. And you're like, I don't know if I want to watch them again do the same. I almost have it memorized at this point. Right. I can do the show for them. Be unique, bring something creative each time. I think that's really good. That's good advice. Tim, as far as your website, your podcast, and kind of more for a listener to connect with you. I know I downloaded your book, your ebook for your website. Really great. I'm really
Thank you.
enjoying that. But let's send people to you and to your podcast as well. I really like to get people to come and be a part of your world as well.
I really do appreciate that. And the website is timnewmanspeaks.com. There you can find everything there. The podcast is there. You can register for the formula for public speaking there. The confidence connection formula that will be that's we're there. We're ready. We're ready. So you can reach me with that too.
And a good starting point for your podcast for a first-time listener, is there an episode to start at? Where would you like to send somebody?
Oh boy, I think the improv episode that you mentioned is one of the best. And I don't want to pick out guests because you know how guests are. They said, "Well, he said my episode was better." I said, but I love all my guests. I really do. They all bring something different. But if you're an introvert, the episode with Stacy Chazen is phenomenal. If you're a sports fan, the one with Cam Awesome is phenomenal. If you're into broadcasting, the one with Goldberg, I forgot his first name.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're all good, and I try and pick guests from different areas to show that we're all the same,
right?
And that's the other beauty of this is from podcasting that I love is I'm talking to people all over the world. We all have the same issues.
Yeah. So how do you wrap up your show when you do a solo episode? When you have a guest, do you have a call to action, a thing that you do at the end of all your shows?
So the end of every show, I say, go to speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com. You can download the free ebook, Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers. You can also register for the Formula for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.
And that's how we end our show. Thank you so much, Tim. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Dave, thank you, buddy.
Excellent. All information, everyone, as always, in the show notes. Go and give Tim a whole bunch of love wherever you listen. If you listen on Spotify, give him those stars and leave comments in the episodes. And we'd love to hear from you. If you're on Apple or any other listening app, there's probably a way for you to leave some kind of feedback. And I know Tim would love to hear from you as a listener and somebody in his community. Make sure you reach out. Let Tim know. Tim, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Dave. Take care, bud.
Excellent. Thanks for checking out the video version of the How to Podcast series. You can always hear us everywhere. howtopodcast.ca. Come check us out. I'd love to talk to you soon. Thanks for being here.